So welcome. I've enjoyed a lovely lunch and meeting all of you, although Claire, I've known you for a while. Today, we're together to talk about, I hope, what it was like to run a business and what the business world was like, Neil Madame, Richmond County, Cape Breton, back in the day. And so, yeah, we have no idea where this conversation is going to go. It's all up to you. And so maybe Wayne, I'll ask you to lead off and just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your life as a businessman at Neil Madame.
Oh, well, yeah, again, Wayne Boudreau, and yeah, I worked a print shop in in Arishat and then West Arishat for about 24 years or so, 23, 24 years. It's quite interesting. Bought out the equipment from Marshall Burno, for example, which was Richmond Record. And I do still have the name, actually, Richmond County Record. It was at that time changed to 1998 Limited, I think, which was the year that I bought it, just for strange reasons. But anyway, regardless of the fact. Yeah, so it was enjoyable. I had a great time. When the fishery dropped, it kind of killed all the businesses on the island, or most of them, which was my bread and butter. And so it caused me basically to have to rethink, and then I moved on to selling computers. Did that for quite a spell, and that was fun too. And learned a lot from that. And from that, of course, grew other things, office supplies. For a while in the same building, we had a used clothing place. You name it, like, we tried everything to try to keep, to make up for. But it was probably impossible to make up the amount of business you were getting from businesses. If you look at the Lower Road in Arishat, for example, you had a meat market. You could buy anything from a skidoo to a calculator to a meat to a suit. Now you can't do that anymore. They're gone. And as these guys kept popping off, leaving, of course your business got reduced. And we live on an island. It's not like we have an increasing population. We don't. And of course, you go far and wide to look for things, so got involved in bingo supplies and sold around Cape Breton, some of the mainland, did that for a while. And then they brought in the Casino Act that left me with 13 tons of bingo paper printed and nowhere to go, so they got dumped at the local mill and used into paper products, right? Which was no profit for me, obviously.
So you've been engaged in a number of businesses then?
Yes, a number of things.
Yeah.
Yes, it was enjoyable, mostly.
All right. And Claire, what about you?
Well, my name is Claire Doyle, and I started a business in the late 70s. I bought the Corner Bridge store. That was my first business.
Oh, yes.
And I ran that business for a number of years, and it was quite enjoyable. And I was kind of going back to my roots because I was born in Little Anse, so I knew pretty well everybody, from that area, right? So it was really great. It was a ma and pa operation, and you sold everything from paint to groceries,
Yeah.
to jewelry, and but it was a 7-day.
Yeah.
12-hour-a-day operation as well. And it wasn't something that I was used to. I was used to a lot of freedom. We used to, my husband was a teacher, and in the summer, we'd take off and we'd go off for 2 months at the time, and we'd travel and we camp, and it became challenging at the end. So, during that time, we had formed a bit of a co-op. Amongst a group of friends, we had formed a co-op and had registered with the Registry of Joint Deeds, and we had purchased a number of other businesses. We created the Madame apartments in Arishat, and we bought the hotel that was there, from who did we buy the motel from? Probably a German, I can't remember, but I think it was like a German
I think so.
young couple that had purchased a hotel. And then later on, we bought later on, we bought the Duke of York Cranberry Farm. That's my phone. I didn't shut it off. Sorry.
Do you want to shut it off, Claire?
Yes, absolutely. Has a nice. It has a nice.
It's
ring.
lovely.
I thought it was background music being,
I thought
being
that,
fed
I
in.
thought they thought we needed background music. Maybe we're being a little too exciting.
Yeah, maybe so.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Maybe if you just put it on airplane mode or something.
More taxes. Airplane mode. Oh.
So all in all, it was pretty exciting. I think I ended up enjoying or getting into entrepreneurship because of a woman that I worked for. Her name was Emma Martel.
Yeah.
She originally was the owner of the Corner Bridge store. And I worked for her for a few years in my younger years. And I just kind of loved everything about her. She taught me so much. And then my brother was in business. Actually my two brothers were in business. So I think I was surrounded by people who, you know, ran their own businesses. And so it just was kind of part of my life. Yeah.
So lots of things as well.
Lots of exciting things, yes.
Fingers and lots of pies. What about you, Billy?
Okay, I'm Billy Diggdon, and owner of Diggdon's Freight Service, well, part owner between myself and my son Rodney. And I started first, I guess, back in 70, 69, 70, but we're under the name of Stanley Diggdon and Son now. And we've been around the complete loop. We've sold vegetables, we've hauled coal, we had a fruit stand. I had a stint at taking the mail to Jarman's Island for a bunch of years. And then I ran the post office, or took charge of the post office in Pittsburgh for 2 years, 2.5 years, while Canada Post was debating what was going to happen. And we made that loop, and then we started, one evening I was down at a friend's place in West Ayrshire, and a fellow came in and told me he was hauling freight from Sydney then. And he said, "You want to give it a go?" I said, "Yeah." A fellow by the name of Bernie Acton, and I said, "Yeah, I'll give it a go." He says, "I got a few accounts, but not too many, okay?" So then we started, and I ran 5 days straight, every day to Sydney for about 5-6 years. Then we reevaluated that, and we cut it down to 2 days a week with 2 trucks in Sydney. And that's where we have been ever since. We went through, you know, and you asked what about in business. Back then it was like, hey, I need money for more trucks, and it was the bank said, no, you're up to your limit. We can't do that now, regardless how good a contract you had setting. I think that's one of the easier things right now for people going in business that they'll find. And there's many headaches to match that easy part, though.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess that's where we went from them. Now we've been running with 8 employees and a girl in the office. And today now we've got trucks covering all into Richmond County,
Wow.
halfway to Inverness, and truck down Guysborough and Cancer and Sherbrooke, and 2 trucks in Sydney. So
Wow. Wow.
we run a total of 8 vans and 2 straight trucks.
Wow.
And I don't love this extra carbon tax.
I guess not.
So I guess that's the where we're at. To be
All
honest and
right.
truthful. Yeah.
Raymond, tell us about you.
Well, my name is Ray LeBlanc. I was born in Ayrshire in 1937. I moved to the schools after I got married. My wife drugged me there. And she was a working girl when I married her. And when I moved to the schools, she had, of course, we got our first kids, and she didn't like to stay at home and do nothing, so she opened up a little store in the house. And a few years later, then I built a piece on the house and built a store onto the house, Shamrock Store, which I still operate. And I'm the type of person, I don't like to see a vacant building or a vacant business. And when the garage in West Ayrshire was shut down, and I think it was foreclosed by FBDB, I bought it and operated it for 12 or 13 years and sold it to Greg Boucher. He was after me for it. And in Discoos, there was a restaurant there, and it shut down, went bankrupt. So I bought that one, and I fixed it up and got it ready for operation, and I sold it. And it's going again today. It's still going. When I moved to Discoos, there was 13 businesses on the north side.
Oh, wow.
13. And besides the motel, the restaurant that I sold, I'm the only business on the north side.
Mm-hmm.
And
So things have changed a lot since all of you
yeah.
started. So Claire, you talked a bit about what inspired you to go into business. What about the rest of you, Wayne? Like what? How did you end up?
Eating, very, very simple.
Yeah, drove you to
Drove me to
the need
working,
to eat.
yes, yes. The
But-
need to eat,
But instead of working for somebody else, you decided to.
yes, yes. No, I was always had that in mind.
Mm.
The opportunity wasn't there, but it came, and I jumped on it.
So even when you were working at the Richmond Record, you were.
Yes, oh yes.
You
I
were
was,
interested
I was
in doing
thinking
your own
certainly,
thing.
certainly.
Yeah. What are the advantages of working for yourself, owning your own business?
Well, it goes both ways, right? There's advantages and disadvantages. You pay for the days of wine and roses, eventually. Right?
There's a lot of people that come and tell me they'd like to be their own boss. And that's not true in business.
It's not- a lot of people will be surprised to hear that. Right?
Yeah, and I always tell them, I said, everybody else, my customers are my boss.
Hmm.
And really, you have to cater to them. You got no choice.
Now, did you know that when you started into business? Like,
I don't know. My wife started off for the first 2 years. And she went under by up to $2,800 in debt.
oof,
And not in debt, but it was in bills owed.
yeah.
That's why I started it. I formed a company then, and like she was amongst her relatives and her friends, and she couldn't say no, and they were always there to charge and charge.
Yeah.
She run up $2,800, and that was a lot of money then.
Yeah.
1970.
What about you,
I-
Billy? What inspired you? To,
Yeah, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned there. Okay, well, I guess it's that my father had been into it right through. I thought it seemed half good there. And then when my wife came totally into it, well, we had many a conversation over that, okay? And I think that's the one that anyone looking at it today, anyone interested in it today, it must be easier because you got a lot more information on the computer, which is at your fingertips. But when the wife and I get into it, would be, where are we going to divide this? I got these bills to pay for the truck, and she'd say, yeah, you got all these accounts to collect out there. So the first thing I'd realize, she made a check out for something that wasn't even due, and then I'd be into somebody's bill that wasn't even due. So then one night, her and I sat down and said, this is only going to spread things further apart, and it's going to spread it further apart in the bedroom than it's going to do in the business, okay? So starting tomorrow, we're going to put two file folders on the wall. You're going to do all the billing, hon. I don't want to see it. I'll pass you the papers. You'll do the billing, and I'll do the paying on the expenses. And hey, after that, my wife spent, I guess, 30 years in the office, very close to it, and worked good.
So challenges. I mean, you've all spoken of challenges. I mean, is it fair to say that for each one of you, and maybe not, but that your families were intimately engaged in the businesses that you've been involved in, or were you pretty independent of them?
We
Well,
were independent.
well, for me, you were, no, for me, my wife and I worked 12 years in the business before even having kids. So, yes, we were certainly involved. And we worked another 20 or so years, or 15, whatever it was, in the business as well. So, yeah, we were involved. There's no doubt about it.
So it sounds like if you're going to be engaged in a business with your spouse, you have to be able to be good business partners as well as
Yes,
Yeah.
good marriage partners.
Good, I think you have to
Yeah.
be good, and the ones that I feel it, and from my point of view for sure, My kids have lost out, and I say that, sorry I can't take time back.
Yeah.
But there was many a time there would be a ball game where my kids were playing, and I was probably down in Benyon delivering freight. My wife would get them up to the ball field, even though they'd only be in West Ayrshire or Ayrshire, but it'd be jump in with the neighbors and take the kids up there. My grandkids have probably seen more of us around their games than our kids did. But-
Right.
Or more of me anyway, not
Yeah,
totally
we had-
either at that.
We had 3 kids in AAA hockey, and it wasn't always easy. And I tried to convince the wife once that if I had a girlfriend, we could each take one. That didn't work out very well. That didn't work out well at all.
But so Ray, what you said is that when you're in business, the notion that you work for yourself is not entirely true. Then, so what are the biggest things that commanded your time? Like what? So you found it a challenge to go to hockey games or participate in kids' activities. What were the things that were drawing your attention?
Well,
Commanded your
deadlines.
time.
Deadlines. It depends on the business you're in, but
Right.
deadlines for me. Person needed something. You never get time to do it. There's never time to do it right, and there's always time to do it over. That's the saying.
Right.
And people cook up these ideas like we just discussed earlier, and these ideas need to be on paper, right? And that's where we come in. And yesterday,
Right.
yesterday.
Was that your experience too,
Well,
Claire?
for me, I think that I think you have to be a well-rounded person to be an individual. You just you need to be. You heard about being the cook and bottle washer. Well, you have to be all of those
Everything,
plus. As for me, when I started my business, it was like a whole new experience. Right? You have to open the door in the morning. You have to prepare the cash. You have to do the book work. You have to kind of make a schedule for your workers, and then you've got to be the person who does the inventory, who has to take charge of stuff, and then you have to do the book work.
Employee deductions, make sure they're on time.
Yes,
GST,
and you have
taxes.
to do all of that.
Yeah.
So really, being a business owner is like more than a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
It's like totally demanding. And I mean, I suppose it all depends the type of business you're in.
Yeah.
But when you're in a ma and pa operation with just a basic business, and you just have an employee or so, you're the other employee, and you have the responsibility of running your business besides.
So was it a challenge for any of you? I mean, I think of myself, as a customer, right? Whether I have a contract with somebody providing a good or a service, maybe that contract lasts over a period of time, or maybe I'm just dropping into a store to buy some cigarettes, although I shouldn't.
Bad move.
My intersections with a business, are periodic, usually, right? Unless I'm a long time, somebody who deals in freight and I have somebody who I rely on constantly. But is it your sense that your customers don't always understand what goes into making it possible for you to deliver the good or service that they count on? Or are people understanding?
Yeah, that's for sure. They don't realize like the obligations we have. I don't think they realize we have obligations. And when you're charging to a customer, and the agreement is that he pays at the end of the month, the reason is because I need that money to pay. Right now, when I started off, we were getting credit and we had to pay monthly. Today, we got to pay it. Today we get it. And it's done by computers and everything. But when I incorporated the store, that was around 1970. It was before that. It was 2 years after my wife had it. Like, she continued to operate the store herself, because I was working in Port Oxford. I was working away. And the only advantage she had when I incorporated was that if somebody came and wanted more credit, they'd say, well, I gotta ask Raymond. That was her, and I wasn't shy about saying no because I wasn't that familiar with the people. That was her people, her family and her people, and I just said, she'd call me up. I'd say no, like it wasn't that difficult, like. But for her to say no, it would have been a hard time, yeah. So she still today runs it with my daughter-in-law and one of my daughters. Like I work at it, but I only work like as a spare,
Right.
Right.
So it sounds
And it's 9 to 9. When Pearl started, she started 8 o'clock till 11. And we dropped the 11 down to 10 because people would come at the last minute. And when we dropped it down to 10, they still come at the last minute, so dropped it down to 9. And from 8 we went to, we had it from 8 because she was up with the kids going to school. So now we have it 9 o'clock till 9 at night. That's 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Raymond, you're providing a great service because you're the only store on the north side
And I
that
added
you
a
can
gas
go to for
bar.
milk and bread. You know.
I had to add a gas bar to it because the demand was there. There was 4 garages, 2 in Pondville,
Yeah, gone.
1 in Discoos, 1 in Martinique.
Yep.
And they're gone. So I had to have something for the people,
So now, so that's an interesting move to make. I mean, was it that you saw that you could make money doing this and there was a need to do it? Or was it that you responded to the need because you thought, somebody should do it, or a bit of both?
The reason I got it, there's no money in it for sure. It's 4 cents a liter, and they still want. They'll come and they'll say, "Well, geez, I left my purse at home." I don't want to give credit, but you got no choice then. And they'll pay you the end of the month. But the reason I got it is because it drew people into the store, so it was beneficial for the business. But the gas bar itself is not a money maker.
Right. What about you, Billy? Do you run anything on a loss? You find you have to do that?
No, I think that part's been better now. In fact, we can cover that one a little bit. Years ago, I was, hey, you're up to your credit limit. You can't keep writing checks. And I had this great big accountant, and I called the big accountant. It's one of the bigger ones in Canada. Said, I need money. Yeah. So I thought I'd play with that for a week or two, and didn't get nothing. So I thought, hey, if I talked to the guy in my credit union league or bank league, forget at that time, and said, hey, he says, well, bring in them statements, and I'll call them right from my office, and you'll take the extension. Good. So he calls him. He goes on to Buddy and tells him, Billy's in this bind. He needs some of that money. Yeah. He says, okay. He says, tell Billy I'll correct this within a couple of days or a week. So the manager said, well, that's great if you can do that. Tell Billy also to decide when he's doing this, if he can't carry us, to let us know, so we'll find another carrier.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's simple as that. So that's one of the things that I will say with all the major companies you do now. You invoice them. You can expect within a reasonable time your money's gone to the bank. You don't even see it. It's in their bank, shot across. You get an email saying that's been deposited, and that's it.
So years ago, more of that would have been handled on the phone with individuals and having to do the interpersonal, sometimes not pleasant.
Years ago was actually much better in certain ways. If you decided on the weekend you were going to buy a car, you talk to Clarence or Carl at the credit union and say, I'm going to buy a car on the weekend. They say, I'll write a check and come in next week. Right? Now you have to take your firstborn with you, and they hold on to that for collateral. It's just changed, totally changed.
Yeah.
Banks the same way.
Yeah.
So some things are easier, but some things are.
You're just a number now,
Yeah.
no matter where you go.
Yeah,
I thought being a woman in business was quite interesting. When I first bought my first business, I went to, of course, I needed a mortgage, and I went to the bank looking for a mortgage. They were willing to give me a mortgage, but my husband had to take the lead. They wouldn't allow me a mortgage.
Yep.
And so my husband ended up owning, you know, he was the owner of the business,
That's
and
right.
I did all the work. And I'm sure things have changed today for women in business, but and then I had to buy a van because I was buying products in Sydney, and I was traveling. You know, I had a little video shop and so on, and so I went looking for a loan for a van. Same thing, and that was like quite a few years later. So women had a hard time to access money in my day.
And were there women on the island who, I mean, you talked about a woman who was an inspiration to you, because she was a business owner.
Yes, yes.
But if you needed help with those kinds of, say, legal matters, were there women around who could advise you at the time, Claire?
No, I don't think so. She's
Probably
talking about
not.
Emma inherited the business when her husband
okay.
died.
Yes,
The
yes.
business had already been grown.
Right,
Yes,
right,
that's
right.
right.
So
They
there
were-
was really nobody who had started a business then?
Not too many,
Not too many, not too many
Not that I can
women.
think of. actually.
You know, I
I
don't know.
can't think of any.
When you talk about women entrepreneurs, like I'm on the Enrich board, Enrich BDC.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the oldest director on that board, and at the beginning, when a woman would come and apply for a loan, it was a different.
Different,
It was a different.
Sense.
They would look at it differently than a man,
Mm-hmm.
and we got away from that, and it wasn't easy. Like, in fact, we're more lenient on a woman application than we are on a.
we were going the other way now,
We're not going the other way. We're just trying to make up for
for last time.
lost time. Yeah.
Well, and maybe acknowledge different, like women sometimes take time out of the workforce to have children, so their histories can be a bit different.
That was the excuse. But like me, what I find, like when a woman used to have a baby, she used to go for 6 months off.
And they consider
Now
that, right?
the man can do
Can,
it.
yeah.
That don't make no sense to me at all.
It certainly made a lot of sense to me.
Huh?
It certainly made a lot of sense to me.
Well, I don't know when it
You
just
send the woman out and then the man stays home.
yes.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
I
Yeah,
thought
the
I thought
father
it
of
was
my
for the
children.
bonding, of your child, for a woman to be at home for and also to regain your health,
Yeah.
Well, for some women, I mean, I was the primary breadwinner in my family when my kids were young, and so when my second child was born, my husband stayed home and looked after her because I had to bring home a paycheck.
Yeah, that's a case though where it was necessary.
Yeah.
But like some men are taking advantage
Oh, yeah,
of that now, and it burns me.
So let's talk then about how things were. Like when you guys started business, there certainly were not the kinds of leave provisions and health provisions that there are now. What would it have been like in the past? If you had employees who ran into challenges, what did you do?
Well, if they were off, you would try to find someone else to replace them. But I don't remember paying their days off. You would provide that money towards another employee. But I don't think there was provisions. But for me, there in later years when I had employees, if I had permanent employees and they were off for a bit, if they couldn't draw their unemployment insurance, or then personally, you'd look at that and you'd do something to support them, right? But there was no law. There was no law that kind of said, well, you have to give like a day a month or and I think now there probably is some laws, but I'm not really sure.
There is, but in reality, if you look at if you look at it right, like, what was I saying? I lost my train of thought here. Just a minute. The train's not even at the depot anymore.
It'll come back.
It'll come back.
It's a return
Dependent
trip.
on employees.
Oh,
like,
no, exactly. Oh, what I mean is, when you're in business that way, you couldn't even begin to afford to have insurance to cover that. That was the biggest problem. You're not part of a large group, So you're a very small amount of people and a very large amount of policy, policy amount to cover that. Billy, you know that because
Yeah.
we've checked that many years.
Yeah.
It's
So-
just not affordable.
So has your practice changed, Billy, over
Our
the
practice
years?
changed there, yeah, because we just about look at it, if you're a regular employee who works all week and you didn't lose no time, and if all of a sudden you gotta go to Halifax with your wife or whatever, it's like, hey, give them the average 8-hour day, put it in their paycheck.
Right.
Cause other than that, you ain't gonna hang on to any employees, if you don't make it flexible for them now.
Yeah,
And,
so there
and I'm
is
not saying
competition.
that's a bad thing now, but you have to be able to provide that flexibility, it's as simple as that. So, if I as a business, or Rodney as a business, you have to say, all right, he's gonna drive today, you're gonna have today off, and both of you are getting paid for today.
So certainly, I mean, I'm thinking maybe this is not true of all of you, but when you start into business, you might have some erroneous expectations, like that you're going to work for yourself, and in fact, you end up working for a lot of people. What about how much money and time it takes to start up a business? Like, did you not necessarily in dollar terms, but how difficult was it to get together the kind of investment you needed to start a business and keep it going?
Well, from my experience, we needed about 20% of the cost of the business, of the startup. If you don't have that, the bank, I don't know if the bank would.
They don't look too favorably.
No, and
The more you have, of course, the better off you are. But
yeah,
but then again, the banks they change too.
Yeah.
Depends on which bank and
yeah,
what your venture is and how they look at it.
yeah.
But you're gonna need something anyway, right? Because you're gonna have unforeseen costs,
Sure.
and, I mean, you have to start,
yeah.
you're starting with labor costs, and in some cases.
But inventory,
Inventory,
whatever,
The
yeah.
inventory is a
Yeah.
big one.
Could be insurance.
But
could
I
be-
gradually made mine, like my shelves were, when I built the store, the shelves from the little store I had in a room maybe this big, didn't fill the shelves very much.
Right, right, so that's a huge amount of money then to build shelving.
The shelving, yeah, well, I done that, the shelving, but 3 or 4 times now.
Yeah.
But you need to fill them.
Yeah,
And
Yeah,
I
that's
got
it.
an inventory of around 60,000, so that's a little costly.
just
Yeah.
a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have to move it.
Yeah.
Because it's no good to you if it just sits on the shelf, right?
Yeah.
And Claire, you were dealing with, like, in your cranberry business with,
Perishable
in some
food.
cases, stuff that was perishable, right?
Oh, yes, perishable,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. What we did when we first purchased the Duke of York, it was meant to be a part-time business, like my husband was retiring from teaching.
Yeah,
Seasonal.
well,
And yes, it was just seasonal, right? You operate spring until November, then it's closed down for the winter, and you pick it up again, right? Not so, absolutely not so. It was a year-round, very challenging business, and we had never been in the farming business before. So, and what we did, we bought a cranberry bog, a 13-acre bog that had been riddled in weeds and
Yeah, for
hadn't been
years.
operable
Yeah,
for
didn't-
years.
yeah.
And, it was like,
challenge, I'm sure.
his brain,
I was just telling them before I worked at that cranberry bog.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I worked for Joss Latimer. You
Okay.
probably heard of him.
Oh, yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm actually related to that
Probably.
family.
Yeah. And that box she's talking about, I used to get 10 cents a box for picking cranberries.
So you did that as a kid
I
or
was
older, like a?
not older, no, I was like 9, 10, 11 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
So we haven't talked about that, right? But how businesses, small businesses in a community like this, are the lifeblood of a lot of employment for people. Right? So I mean,
Absolutely.
it's a challenge to have employees, and there's but they are absolutely essential. But from the point of view of the employee, it's essential that small businesses exist. Otherwise, I mean, how do people feed their families?
I find that Richmond has probably the oldest aging population of the province, if not more. And what happens is our baby boomers are starting to retire. So you end up with businesses looking for people to work, but there's no one to replace them.
Right.
I think that's going to be one of the major challenges in years to come. And it is not rocket science. Like nursing, for example, doctors, for example, this was known 25, 30 years ago. When I was at St. Anne Center as chairman, we discussed that many times, that nurses, you know, it used to be 18 months at St. Rita's, and here you have a nurse. Now you've got 4.5 years at whatever university they go to, and they're gone. They're
Yeah.
gone somewhere else, right?
Was there a time, so thinking back, I mean, over the last 30 years or so, was there I mean, Ile Madame has not been in a position where the labor market has been this tight, has it, or was there a time?
Well, we always had fish plants,
Right,
and Boots Fisheries contributed a
people.
lot to the
A
community.
lot of people. Yeah.
But after Boots Fisheries and the companies that took over after that, they quit.
You said, yeah.
Only for the Sampson family, we'd be in a hard time on the island.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you. They hire like over 100 people. Where my daughter works for them, and I think there's 135 that works where she's at.
right.
That's a lot of people.
Well, that's a lot of families, right? Like not just individuals, but people dependent on them.
And
Yeah.
they make fairly good money. You know, some of them say it's not enough, but
Never
it's
enough.
never
my daughter,
Never
my
enough,
daughter's
right?
got her own home and everything,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she doesn't mind working there.
So
Although-
a lot of businesses have disappeared. You talked, Wayne, about the businesses that used to be on the lower road, right?
It's seems to have shifted to the high road now for a while.
Yeah,
You know,
but not in numbers though.
Not in numbers, no.
No.
No, that hasn't happened.
I got a list at home that
What you had in Lower Road before, yeah.
what there was on the low road.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe how
Yeah.
many businesses there was.
What are ones that?
But there was more population though, because when we
Yes.
arrived,
Well-
we were away for a while, and when we moved back in 1969, I think there was over 7,000 people
There
living.
was, yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
The,
That's true.
the funny part of it is
Yep.
there was more people, but you know what? There's buildings going up all the time and expanding in buildings, and I can't understand that.
There are newbies that are moving
Yeah.
in town, somewhat like
Yeah.
Anne.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
You'd be
although I bought an
surprised.
old house, but
Yeah,
There's,
Yeah, but
yeah.
there's a lot of that, like you say, the only thing, there's a lot of these families where they're either retired or they only got 2 kids in the house anyway, even some of
That's
the
true.
local people that's here where
Oh, yeah.
their fathers and mothers would have 5, 6 kids, well, they're only having 2 kids.
Yeah, that's
okay?
right.
So
I
families are
had a
small.
I know,
grand,
when I was on, up here as fire chief, we had 7,800 people
Yeah, that's
on
right.
the island.
yes,
right.
I had a
And,
grand uncle that had 28 kids,
28 people.
holy smokes.
28, and he never held a job in his life.
Well,
Well,
he had a job.
He was busy, kept busy at least. If nothing else.
That's hard to
He
believe.
should have
though.
got paid. He
Yeah.
should have got
Per
paid
kid,
by the
per kid.
governmental.
I was gonna say, it's a good thing the
He had,
GSD,
he had a whole
rebate.
he had a whole community there.
He
So-
lived off of the land and
so what-
fishing and
Yeah.
Well, so what are some of the businesses that
Oh! That's okay.
that are kind of cherished that people
holy
remember?
shit.
Oh, that's nothing.
Don't worry about it.
Oh, the
Don't worry
well,
about that.
as a
That's what the washing
child,
machine's
as a
for.
child,
Yeah.
my mother used to make her visit to
That sounds
Arishat
good.
once a month to visit the LeBlanc store.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Once
yeah.
a month. And where did she live, Claire?
She lived in Little Lands, but we didn't have a car.
Right. So once a
And
month.
so, well, once a month and maybe even longer. But that was her biggest, is to make a list, you know, and,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah.
the list not only included groceries,
Everything.
but it included, it could be footwear, it could
Yeah.
be
Hardware,
cotton to
yeah.
make clothing.
Wool.
It was one of these stores that had everything.
Don't forget the toy
Everything,
department.
including, yes, toys and lumber
Yeah.
and
Electronics.
you didn't really need to leave the island.
I bought a skidoo there.
Well, everybody talks about LeBron's store.
Oh,
Yes,
huge.
Yeah.
yes, they were the icon. They absolutely it
Pinnacle.
was like.
How did your mom, so on her monthly trips to,
Well,
how
she
did she
would-
get to?
Well, her brother had a little store in Little Lands. Uncle Peter had a store, a little grocery store. And again, it was a grocery store, but you could buy just about.
Anything.
You could buy nails there, and
yeah.
you could buy everything. You know, rubber boots.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and if you didn't have it, they would order it for you.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
my mother ordered her first television, a Marconi,
Yeah.
from Uncle Peter. And
Very good.
you know, when the TV came in, it was so big that it took the whole wall.
Yeah, cabinet.
And it weighed a ton. And then you could just pay Uncle Peter. She
So
would
much
get,
off, yeah.
she would get that monthly check from the government for the children she
Yeah.
Or
had.
the baby bonus, yeah.
And he would accept that money as a payment
Yeah,
for the television. Took her years to pay for the television, of course, right? But she would then, you know, in later years, and she would venture off to Ayrshire to do that shopping, you know. It was a big deal for her. You know, it was getting her out of, I remember her getting all dressed and, you know, doing her hair.
Oh, it's a big
And then
event.
at Christmas, she
Yeah.
would take us to this toy shop they
Oh,
had in
yeah,
Ayrshire.
toy
And
store, yeah.
oh my God!
Yep.
Between her
Toyland.
and Stella LeBlanc's store,
Oh,
they
yeah.
had a toy
Yeah.
shop.
$50 upstairs.
Where
yes,
was
yes.
Stella LeBlanc's store?
The Rona now.
Not
The
far.
Rona,
Okay.
and they had the toy shop upstairs,
Upstairs,
and it
oh,
was
yeah.
like
It was
magical.
Dressed. It was dressed. yeah.
It was magical.
It
yeah.
was nice.
So they were, I think, the two stores that kept all of
Yeah.
Dam going. Besides the, you know, the little stores
Yeah.
for lumber and bigger items, you
Yeah.
know,
And then there was
that people needed.
people selling meat right to your door, Harold
That's right.
Cova and
That's right.
Oh, so they made deliveries?
made
Oh,
deliveries
yeah.
right to
Oh,
your
yes.
door.
Francis
My
Martel.
father sold
Milk.
apples
Milk and-
potatoes
and-
Francis
and
Martel, yeah.
Francis Martel did that for years.
Yeah.
Petty Paul, whatever his name was.
Yeah.
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 And it's funny,
Stanley
Claire
Petty Paul.
touches on that one about
Yeah,
getting
that's right. That's
paying each month, because I think it was the IGA at that time. I know we found, it didn't take long to find out. They had this program where you buy gas from Shell.
Yeah.
And they'd give you a little golden stamp or something in a
Yeah,
box.
Yes.
gold bond
Oh,
stamp.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Stamp,
Okay,
yes,
so
yeah.
hey, my wife was really smart. We were gassing up a lot back then too, getting that. First thing we decided to, she's got, I don't know, enough for a set of dishes or pots or pans. Hey, you got to run to Ayrshire to get that. So we did. About 2 months after,
Yeah.
I get audited.
Oh,
Buddy comes in and he says, "What's this thing? Stamp." Because she was. So I told him. He looks at her and he says, "Was there a value on that?"
Oh my God.
She said, "Well, maybe a couple $100."
Okay, no problem.
Okay, he says, "You didn't show that. No, where's did you?"
oh,
So that was 2 lessons, I think, that anyone that looks at any government coming out, and I got no problem talking to anyone has to look at that aspect. You got to look at the other one. When I think it was, where are we at now? GST first came out.
Oh, yeah.
That was my moneymaker.
Yep.
Hey,
Yep.
you're going to pay me my GST, and I'm going to put this in a different account at the credit union. Because I only have to send it in at least every 3rd month or maybe 6, wherever they're looking.
Yep.
So I'll have a couple of $100 in there, which I gained a little bit of interest.
right.
Fine dandy, done that. Credit union had no problem opening another account and putting it in there. Keep that separate. We put it in there for us to go down the road to get audited again. So I'm saying,
You
hey,
didn't
You
claim
did
the interest this
didn't
time.
claim the
Like they
interest.
did their work for them, right? It was all separated, ready for them.
Yeah, it was too easy for them, eh?
Well, so that's the other thing, I guess, that sometimes people don't understand when they dream of opening or running a business on their own, is that, I mean, you have to be, at some level, you have to be your own lawyer, you may end up, having to hire these people, but even in order to judge whether they're providing you good service, you have to know a fair amount about the law, right? Labor law, occupational health and bookkeeping,
Counting.
incorporation law. I mean, when you
Tax law.
incorporated, tax
Well,
law.
I was working with a law firm, so I
Yeah.
incorporated 3 companies for myself,
Yeah.
and it didn't cost me any. All it cost me was the
Registration.
registration.
The
Yeah,
registration.
cost.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you have to know enough to know that you have to do that.
and I
right?
was an accountant before I went with the lawyers, so
Well, that helps.
yeah. So I do all my own accounting. Like I still have 2 businesses going.
Well, this guy from
Correct,
Lucedale
correct.
never thought that you were an
The what?
accountant.
What?
Guy from Lucedale used to get in the scrap with all the time. He never thought you were an accountant.
But I remember a lady getting audited that had a little business, and she had no, she had no skills. Like she didn't really do any kind of bookwork. But she would put all of the slips and stuff in shoe boxes. She put it upstairs,
Well, at least she kept
That's
them.
the smartest.
One day she got audited, and the guy said, "Well, I want to see your books." And she said, "Okay,
Here.
come with me." She got them
That's very
upstairs.
discouraging for them, right? Did they see a box?
Boxes everywhere. She says, "Well, what you see is what you get. Have fun."
So what's your favorite memory of being involved in business, Wayne?
Favorite memory? I don't know if there's a favorite memory.
Well, or a success or like something.
Accomplishment. Oh,
Yeah, that makes you
I
just
was audited once.
You what?
I was audited once, yeah. And the successful part is that after the second visit and going two people, people told me, make them comfortable, make them a place to sit, give them a table, give them some coffee, tea, whatever they want. I did that. So with the first visit, they came up with, they wanted 36 different items, paperwork on 36 different items. I said, just I don't know if I'll be able to do that somewhere 5 years back, right? Hard to find. I said, well, I'll do what I can. Anyway, so off they go. They come back 2 weeks later. So, okay, do you have, I had a box ready with all the stuff I had found, maybe 10 or 12 of them, right? That's all I had. And I told them, I said, I couldn't find all 36, but I got 10 or 12. Never mind, that's fine. Just wanted to know if you were going to do it or not.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Anyway, Buddy said, good news, we found a mistake you made. I said, a mistake? That's good news? Yeah, it's good news. He said, that's on your side. I think this was something like $80-some $100, $8,800 or something in your favor. So you'll be getting a check in the mail.
Wow.
Then it was a check in the mail. It wasn't a check. It wasn't a direct deposit. No.
Well, that would make one
So
feel
that was a
very
highlight.
good. Yeah.
That was a good week.
Yeah.
That was a good week.
Yeah.
But that was kind of a strange. It never happens hardly. You talk to people in the business, they get audited. They're just half crazy with it. And I was about the details that they were looking for, because you couldn't find them. And when you can't find them, they'll do an estimate, and that could go whichever way that they feel is that day. I don't blame them for that. It's just the way it is, right? They had to come up with something. Anyway.
Yeah, it worked out.
It worked out fine, and I'm very happy. And that stands out because it doesn't happen too often, right?
What about you, Claire?
Well, my biggest accomplishment, I thought, was, when we ended up buying that last business, the Duke of York, the farm, we ended up with like thousands of pounds of cranberries, which we had no idea what we were going to do with that many
Juice up.
cranberries,
Juice
right?
up.
I mean, we could sell some, but we still had a whole lot, right?
Yeah.
So then we had to freeze them. And then, well, we didn't have freezers.
The size.
So anyway, but you were talking about the Samsons. They came
container,
to our
yeah,
rescue. They had freezers down there, and they allowed us to kind of freeze our product in boxes, which was great. So a little kitchen developed from that. The idea of creating products with frozen berries, right? And so we developed a little side business where we sold, we made cranberry juices, and we made jellies and jams, and everything that we did had to have. We dried cranberries, and we sold, and everything we baked, we had to have that touch cranberry in it.
Yeah.
And at the time, the markets were developing, farm markets were developing, and so we had a farm market in Halifax that wanted our product.
Oh, well.
So we trucked her up from Almadale to Halifax weekly to be at that market in Halifax, that big market.
So that's why it wasn't a part-time job anymore.
It wasn't a part-time job, and the thing is that we said, okay, well, if we're traveling all the way to Halifax, there's got to be little businesses like off those exits.
Yeah.
There was a lot of exits, right?
Geez, yeah.
So we tapped into that market, the health food stores, all along the way. And we ended up getting, orders and developing relationships with them. And I think the idea of farm markets, that's a community of itself.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Oh my God, people were so good in Halifax.
Work well together too, right?
And they worked together. I served on their board of directors. And it was like one big family.
Yeah.
If you didn't show up that week, they wanted to know.
Why? And where were you?
Yeah,
where were they?
You'd get the calls, or they'd come back the following week and ask you, well,
Missed you
I
last
hope
week.
everything was well and all of this. And so when we left that business, and we left that business in 2008, when the prices went crazy with the market.
Yeah. The fall in the
Um,
market.
Yes, we had this little kitchen. We had like a tight, it was really tight to run the
work it, yeah,
business.
yeah.
And you couldn't really just add $1 to a product. If you were to add 10 cents to a product,
Notice it,
people would
yeah,
notice
yeah.
it and kind of complain that the
Yeah.
prices were going up. But in 2008, when the cost of the like today, the inflation went like crazy. You went from buying a package, a 20-pound bag of flour that was something like $7.99, and all of a sudden it went up to $19.
That's right.
You know,
Yeah.
$20
Crazy.
for
Your costs. has
and the
doubled.
sugar and everything
Oh,
in
yeah.
the kitchen, the prices
Went up.
soared. And at the end of the year, we went to the accountant, and the accountant said, "Well,
Yeah, you're breaking
No,
even
this
if you're
doesn't
lucky.
look good."
Yeah, if you're lucky.
if you have personal money, you're going to have to, invest because there's no way, your expenses exceeded your income,
Wow.
and
So
that's
is-
not good news."
Is that when you got out of the business?
Yeah,
then?
we had to kind of bring the business to a close because of inflation.
Right.
Inflation killed our business.
Yeah.
Well, on
And
the
I'm
other
sure
hand,
inflation killed the
Oh, yeah.
business.
Oh, yeah.
And at the meat market,
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember
Yeah,
the
they-
gentleman said that when inflation hit,
Yeah.
he had one of these open-ended line of credits at the
They
banks.
kept going up. Yeah.
28% he
Yeah,
was at.
I know.
And
Can't
you
survive.
know,
That
the
was in the
economy,
1980s. Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
help. Inflation doesn't help little business.
No.
Because little business works on a very thin margin,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you were mentioning, Raymond. And any bump in the economy, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
small
Reflects a lot.
businesses are the first to suffer.
You look like you want to say something,
Well, I
Billy.
get a laugh when she says the interest rate. 1984, I was putting vehicles on at 21%.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Okay, and on top of that 21%, I think it was 85 or 85 and a half, I got one smashed. And the one I managed to get smashed was a lease unit. And it was like, hey, I need another one tomorrow, can't be fixed. And the bank is saying, no, we can't do it because the lease got to be paid off first. The insurance company's saying, well, it's going to take us 3 weeks, 4 weeks to do this. I was hauling for Credit Union Central then, delivering all their Credit Union bags where my drivers were. It's like, hey, this stuff can't wait. It's got to go to all these credit unions. Turn around, pick up the phone, call some company in Alberta, didn't even know who they were. I told him what I was looking for. He says, can you fax me some information? Yeah, fax him some information because they specialized in truck financing. He called me back and he says, yeah, he says, what you need there, he says, go to Lloyd McDonald's tomorrow and they'll have a truck ready for you.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, hey, I can't get that done in the local
And what
area.
was the financing? How much was the interest rate? Do you remember?
The interest rate was surprising. I went through that in '86 too. I had the credit union check made from the credit union. Poor Carol was there then,
Yeah,
and Carol was working for me. And whatchamacallit, I told Carol, I said, I'm in a hurry today. You go to Andy Condition and pick up this van. Good, she says, it's all ready. She gets up there. She comes back with a bunch of papers. I said, well, it's all the papers. She says, he got me to sign it, she says, and they financed it there. Okay. I look at it. I call Carl, forget what the interest rate and it wasn't. I said, buddy, up there, put it through Chrysler Canada. And he says, what's the interest rate? So I told him. Carol says, leave it there. It's $0.015 cheaper than ours right now.
Oh, yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of competition in the economy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
When
it's
the
still
prices
there.
go up.
It's
Prices
still
go
there.
up, yeah.
You know, that's never changed that
So in
part.
terms of accomplishments, what about you, Ray? What a moment you were proud or
He's still alive.
you
I
had
think
a-
that's the
you had a win.
accomplishment.
I think an accomplishment in business is when if you're going to acquire a business, there's a lot into dealings with different people, and when you finally sign that agreement and when you get the property, you figure that's an accomplishment.
Well, it is usually, right? I
And-
mean, you gotta negotiate and get two minds
Yeah.
to meet.
And
to
every
seal a
time I
deal.
do my income tax,
That's an accomplishment. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I got to work on it on one of the companies now, and when I'm finished
You're
it's
glad.
such a relief, and that's an accomplishment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, like even when I do my HST and stuff like that,
Yeah.
there's everything you got to do, eh?
Yeah.
And
And it has
when
deadlines.
it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it feels like a bit of a board game too, right?
It's
To
all
see if at the end you
electronic
pulled
now.
the right card and you're
Yeah.
gonna get money.
But
I
you
do
know,
nothing
Ann,
electronic. I
Should
do
be
it all
easier, but-
paper.
Yeah.
but you know, Ann, I think when you sometimes have to lay a business to rest, and it's not, it kind of, it's heartbreaking, really.
Yeah.
You build it up, you build a relationship with all your customers, and then you've got to kind of put it to rest because it's going to be harmful to you. But the thing is that you learn a lot of skills. You end up having acquired quite a few skills if you're out then looking for a job or something. Because you're a manager, you're a good communicator, you're a good accountant. You're almost an accountant. Well, you're
Yeah.
not a qualified accountant, but you can do like a lot of accounting, and you've picked up all of these skills in business that makes you ready for the marketplace.
Did you
So all
claim,
these
did
acquired
you claim
skills.
any bereavement leave?
Huh?
Did you claim any bereavement leave?
When your
Yeah,
business
should. But you have to be very careful with government.
Yes.
Because I know that when we first started with the Duke of York Cranberry Farm, cranberries was opening up. And the government, the Cape Breton partnership that
Yeah.
they have now was like under a new brand,
Yes.
under a new name.
Yeah.
And they came looking to us to see if we could, because they were investing in farms.
Of course, yeah.
Farming was like the thing, and they provided us with a whole lot of upfront money to develop our business. And a person have to be very, very careful because
Yeah.
they're willing partners up front. But the problem is that once they provide you with that income, they drop you.
Yeah.
They don't follow you
No, they
up
don't
as a
maintain.
business.
Yeah, they don't help maintain.
Yeah, and
the
they
business.
don't help you, down the road 5 years or 7
Or
years or
start
10
up
years.
and then,
And they don't
gone.
come back to see how healthy you are and how well you're doing and so on.
but you'd think they
And
would.
I think that's like a kind of a something in something with government that they really need to review. If they're out providing you with upfront money, that's all fine and good. But they should, once they open up a file, they really need to follow that file. They really need to follow you through. They have to come back to you
But how can you justify if you don't follow it through? Like, how can you say, oh, well, this money that I spent here was worth it here? If not, keep doing it. They say a person who keeps doing the same thing with no benefit to it. Anyway, you know what they say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean,
it's
governments.
because they follow, they move with the economy, Farming might be good,
Oh, yeah, they'll
and
move
they
to a
might
different,
have a pool of money, but then 5 years down the road, technology moves in,
Yeah.
and they're into technology.
Julie, you look
that-
like you, or Raymond.
That's where accounting is important in a business,
Yes,
because you do accounting, and I do it on a monthly basis. I know where I'm at every month.
yes,
The minute you see it going down for some reason or other, sometimes it can go down, but you go back a year and say, well, that month was bad anyway. So every month, and if you see you're going down, you gotta adjust something.
Right on.
You gotta make some adjustments.
So it's like using a thermometer on a patient.
Well,
right?
if you
Yeah.
don't have the books to tell you the
You have no
facts
idea.
in
Yeah,
front
you
of
can't see
you,
it.
you can't see it.
Yeah.
You'll notice it in your cash flow.
Yeah.
But that
You'll
doesn't,
wonder why.
yeah,
So if you were gonna give a piece of advice to a young person who's thinking, who's always dreamed of starting a business, whether in a specific field or just in general, what would your most important piece of advice be?
Well, my most important one, and when you say what was your biggest accomplishments, I feel the ones there is both of my sons at this point can stand on their own. Okay, they've
Right.
seen the side of business where both of them went into it. Okay, Michael went away, worked away for 6-7 years, but he decided no, there's got to be more to life than just working away.
Yeah.
And that's when he came back and bought Highland Beverages, okay? And took major losses the first couple of days. More money than what was there, which is, I argued 20 years ago with Federal Development Bank, what you're doing to businesses, you're giving us 75% to start up when we need 100% or 90%, you're
Yeah,
cutting it short,
and you get cut.
25% right off the bat. And I think anyone going into business, same now, younger people has to make sure that that you're not going in there and telling yourself, I'm gonna work 8 hours a day. Because you
Yeah.
might as well snap that lock at the door the first day you do it.
Right, right. What about you, Ray?
My
What would you
advice to
say?
anyone starting a business is go and see Enrich.
Yep.
It's a BDC, a federal loan agency. And when I say that we were more lenient to women, it's not exactly true, the true meaning of what I said. We're more lenient because the staff spends more time with that lady fixing up her plans for
Right,
for the
supporting or
business.
developing the business,
And,
yeah.
and they tell her whether it's successful or not, you know, and we don't always spend that kind of time with another applicant. But when it's a woman applicant and we see that there's a chance that it can be successful, then the staff will work with that. And they work with others too,
Right,
but they work harder with a woman because the woman knows that she's gonna have a tougher time.
so the program is called Enrich. and it's
Inverness
through-
Richmond,
Inverness Richmond, and it's through the Business
it's a
Development,
BDC,
Business Development Bank of Canada.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's really good advice.
oh, yeah,
Mark
Yeah.
Poirier is on that board with you, isn't he?
yeah, from Shettycamp,
Yeah.
yeah.
You told me that.
Are their
Yeah.
interest rates competitive?
Our interest rates can't be competitive. What you have to do is go to a bank
Yeah.
and try and get a loan.
Yeah.
And if you want 100,000, the bank says, oh, we'll give you 60 or 70, then come back to us and we'll give you the rest,
Oh,
if it's feasible.
yes.
Yeah, if the business plan
Yeah,
merits it, yeah.
and we're not supposed to be, you know,
Lenders.
too hard on the person.
Yeah,
If there's a possibility at all, we'll back them. And we have losses, but every time we have a good year, not Revenue Canada, but the federal people say, geez, you couldn't have done very good this year, you know. But if we have losses,
That's
they
fine.
praise us. They think we done great. We were risky with the money, and
well,
it-
you put
it-
more money into the
Yeah.
economy, right?
Yeah.
and
Right.
and
Maybe that's what they want.
I don't see it that way, but
No.
that's the way they see it.
Well,
So we have to balance. We can't go and throw the money out, but if there's a possibility at all that it can go.
You're not used to federal government, obviously.
they don't work the same
They
as
don't work the
business.
same way.
The federal government is there ideally to spend money.
Oh, yeah.
What
share
about
it.
you, Wayne? What advice would you give?
Advice, I'd say, if you plan to go into business and you don't have university to start with, and even if you do, you should be taking some business courses. And if not business courses, at least bookkeeping courses.
Yeah, that's important.
You know, it's important to have, even the basics, right?
Yeah,
And computerized, so that you start on the right foot, right?
yeah, because everything is
Yeah,
technology
everything's
these
online,
days.
you may as well do it that way.
Yeah,
You know, Raymond, the racket, we all went through
Oh,
to
yeah.
Billy, you know that, to switch from one program to another, let's say.
Oh,
No, do it right
We're
to start
smooth
with.
now, we're
I know it's
simply
smooth now,
smooth now.
but you know what I mean, right?
What about you, Claire? What advice would you
Well,
give?
I think I agree with everybody. It's, I think you have to really kind of think it out. And it all depends your location, because I found with our last business, our location was a bit challenging. You know, we were selling locally, but it wasn't enough to help, you know, grow the business.
You needed a bigger market.
So you had to have a bigger market, so you really have to think your business out. upon your location, where you're located at, and the type of model, the business model you're gonna, kind of get into.
Right.
And then tap into, services out there. And like Wayne says, you really have to have some skills. You have to have the
Try to
skills
develop some skills
to
in
apply
advance.
to the business. And you have to work hard.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
to work
The
hard.
location is important.
The location
And that's what made Casey Irving the man he is today, or he's dead now, but
Yeah.
that company, they picked a location, was always an intersection. It was a hub,
Yeah,
yes.
and I read their history. I mean, it's surprising how fast he developed.
Well,
And it
when in Arashat's heyday, that's what made Arashat.
Yes.
It was a hub of
Yes.
traffic coming from Europe,
Yeah.
the United States,
Cancel.
and so and up the
really?
coast of southern Quebec, right?
Yeah.
So it was the
The
side.
waterway you're talking about?
Yeah, it was this harbor. was
Yeah.
sort
Yeah,
of
the
right
harbor.
in the right-
Yeah.
But
You're gonna say
That's
something
free.
too.
the hub today is St. Peter's.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
for
because the
Richmond.
flow of traffic, they're
And the
coming
canal.
They got
right
every other
through.
they
Yes.
got Lardoise, they got St. George's Channel, they got River Bourgeois.
Yeah.
So you have to know geography too.
So maybe it's a good thing that they didn't go with the Richie Man over the Narrows, right?
Yeah, well,
The Richie Man
that's still
highway.
in the works, you know.
Oh,
Yeah,
don't say that.
the
They're
divided
still try-
highway is
They're
still a
still
trek.
trying to bypass St. Peter's, but
Yes.
the people don't want it.
Well,
No.
I know.
Yeah, I mean,
Billy, you've been trying to say something.
Yeah,
Sorry
I just
about
have
that,
a few
Billy.
different, I have a little bit of different views, and I guess maybe I was one that got burnt along the line, maybe. Back many years ago, I had intended to put a big, to use a building that was already there, and I went to this government agency, and they said, all right, you gotta get all these ducks in order, find out if you can get this building off of Irving Oil, show us that you got 5 other companies, and we'll fund the study. I think the study was something like $3,500. Good. I get all the ducks in order. I get hold of the people Irving that owns the building. I still got it at home, maybe in buildings long torn down since, but hey, yes, we will lease you that building for a period of 35 or 40 years, providing you never have a wrench in there working on cars.
Yeah. So
Very
that-
simple. 5 companies gave me a go-ahead that they'd take the freight into us. My idea was we're going to put a couple of shuttle trucks up there and take all their freight off. The minute they came across the causeway, go up the highway, we'll take everything else, and we'll go and do the Sydneys and that. Worked good. Then when I went back with the study and said, here, we got all this together. Yeah, but we didn't realize you were a service industry.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, no.
Okay, but the company that had done the surveys for me,
Right.
I still owed them $3,500.
Yes.
Okay, so I had to pay them. Fine and dandy. Then we got another one that the county made many years ago. Many years ago. It's the same one that it shows from the old bank to down the other side of Herman's
Yeah,
with a
that's-
boardwalk.
That's a nice one, yeah.
And if you go through that, it says there's only room in Richmond County for 2 trucking
Yeah,
companies.
that's what it says.
That's it. Nobody else will survive. Well, right now, there's 8 trucking companies
right.
coming on Almaden, okay? One of them's owned by Joe Shannon, and the other one of the other ones is owned by Dexter. So don't expect to see them
They're not
down
going anywhere
overnight.
soon, yeah.
They're not going nowhere. And I look at, hey, how many half of these surveys is right?
Yeah.
One that I really took advantage when I looked at that is when I went to the bank once, and the bank manager and that's when I was dealing with the bank, and him and I had a round. He says, listen, he says, you got to change this account. And I was having a bad day, and I said, listen, there's only one difference between your numbers and mine. And he says, what's that? I said, you're writing yours in red, and I'm using the black pen for mine. That's the only difference. And surprisingly, after, I guess he must have been here, bank manager, 6-7 years, I left the bank, went with another one.
Oh, I know who
And
you
I met him after that.
Yeah.
And, he says, when I look back at the conversation we had, it was probably one of the best ones. I said, why? And he says, I looked at the bank for about 2.5, 3 years after, and I said, that's not for me.
There you go.
And he went and worked in the deck.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think we'll wind up. Is there anything you want to say that we haven't said?
We said a lot.
You've said a lot. I have learned a lot. I feel very privileged that the 4 of you came to lunch, took up the invitation, and contributed to the education of Anne Leavitt and anybody else watching. And it's been a real pleasure meeting
Well, we still have 3 or 4 hours.
Well, keep going, Wayne. What else would you like to say?
You know, getting into business is just not all that simple.
No.
It's not simple to get into business. And it's challenging, it's time consuming, but it can also be rewarding. It's rewarding.
Yeah, it's important to say that, I think,
Yeah.
because I don't think the four of you wouldn't have stuck it out as long as you did if it wasn't rewarding at some level, right? You would have quit and gone to work for somebody else, right? And you didn't.
I'd say it was enjoyable.
And it's,
So-
yes.
Yeah.
It was.
And it's rewarding to run your own business. You know?
Well, and the other thing that struck me just listening to the four of you is that, I mean, it sounds to me that to be a successful business person, I mean, you have to have a certain amount of imagination, right? You have to imagine something being there that's not there now, and you have to be kind of smart enough and humble enough to get that you need to do a certain amount of work and understand what that work is in order to take that idea and make it real. And so, I mean, it does sound like, and then to see it happen must be pretty exciting, I would think. And happen, when it happens well and when it works well, it must be very rewarding.
For me, it was, my wife wanted to work, and she couldn't go out and work. So she wanted something where she could work from home.
And she made it happen.
And
Well, the two of you
what
made it
what
happen.
you no, it was a lot of her. She still runs it with her daughter-in-law, and she called it Shamrock Store, by the way, because she's Irish.
Right?
I would have called it Fleur de Lis, but
The Irish flower one.
but you have to, when you want to get into a business, you have to know that there's a demand for something.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most important things, like, and that it's not going to hurt somebody else, somebody else's business, then you share the hard times, so you pick something that's not in the community, in the immediate community, so that you're the only one there.
Right.
And don't brag about it being good, because you'll get a competitor next door.
Yeah.
As soon as you see a business being successful, then they say, oh, well,
Oh,
my
yeah.
gosh, maybe I can do
Do
that.
that too.
Yeah,
you
well,
know?
my business is I'm just above water,
Yes.
so don't come and build near me.
I think the biggest one there and I know location is good, but I think you have to provide the service, and sometimes that means getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
No more to it than that. In our case, it's like, hey, getting out of your comfort zone. And but you have to provide that service. You have to look at it sort of like McDonald's restaurants. We'll build a restaurant and the people will come to it.
Right.
And
Field
that's-
of dreams.
Eh?
Field of dreams.
Field of
Yeah.
dreams.
Well, what happens though as well, if you're starting a business, drop the blindfold and don't look at your idea as being a grandiose accomplishment before you even get there. Try to take constructive criticism. If you get it, use it. Don't say, oh, the heck with this guy. Listen, you might learn something from it. It's kind of important because we all have big ideas, and in our mind, it's great. I see this on TV on the show. I forget the name now, and some presenting. They've done their research. They have a business plan. They have everything, but it's crazy. Like it's completely out to lunch, and they tell her that,
Yeah.
and then they get devastated.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't.
They should,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, you don't want to start up a business and have it fail
Well, that's
because you didn't pay any
Because
attention.
there's a big
to-
investment.
I don't know
you
what the percentage is of people that start a business and that fail, but it's quite large.
Well, in some sectors,
Yeah.
it's very large.
Quite large.
Yeah.
On the island, we got a great opportunity if only it was
Oh,
pushed more.
geez, yeah.
And it could be pushed
Oh, yeah.
more by business. The reason I say that, and what I'm using there, let's just take Sherbrooke for an example.
Yeah, there's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got almost, not exactly like Sherbrooke, but close.
Similar,
Okay,
very similar.
we had a trail going to Cape Hogan.
Yeah.
We've got the rocks and the lands.
And you can't say that we're any more out of the way than Sherbrooke is.
Than Sherbrooke
Right,
is,
go on.
no.
So you can't use that as an excuse.
So I guess what we could say is that there's nowhere to go but up.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
But I found the biggest challenge when I was chair of the Almaden Tourism Association was trying to get the businesses together to cooperate.
Yeah.
The businesses themselves are kind of little independent businesses, and I was in business at the same time. And I found it challenging for these businesses to come together, to work together. Because I don't know if they felt, well, if I put my business out there, you know, maybe I'll end up with a whole lot of competition, and that wouldn't be good for me. I
That
have
could
no
be.
idea.
And
But I know that there's like, unless they unite and they themselves like expand the role of the tourism idea, it's not going anywhere, because businesses really need to come together to help develop that idea of growing the tourism industry. It has to come from business.
when it comes to competition, Atlantic Sugar is probably a good example of how you can lose a business pretty fast, right? And it's not there.
Well, maybe next time.
Yeah, that's a whole new topic.
Next
Isn't
time, we'll have all the recipes for what we should be doing next.
When you're talking about tourism, there's one place I've been looking at for ages, and that's Port Royal, St. Mary's.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Beautiful.
Fort Royal, St. Mary.
You just gotta go out that road and look on your left.
Yeah,
The
it's so
harbor is
beautiful.
unreal.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And I've been trying to do something. I was gonna do some kind of motel or something like that,
Yeah,
or cottages
Yeah.
along
Cottages
there,
be great,
and with small boats, you know, rental.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
And what a friggin' nice place,
is.
but I don't have the money to do it, you know, but I'm sure somebody,
But you have investors.
yeah, but I don't like investors. I like to be on my
Well,
own.
they investors, okay.
But I mean, somebody, if they could only do that, I'd like to see it done. I don't care if it's me does it,
I see.
but you talk about a nice area, I don't,
And here's the lesson, right?
yeah.
Once an entrepreneur,
Always an
Yeah,
entrepreneur, yes.
because you're never going to stop having ideas.
Oh, no, you
So-
don't
So
stop.
if we stop at your place, will you be whittling a boat to try to make them?
No, well, your brother lives on that road,
I know he does.
so he should be in.
I know.
Give him
I
your
know.
number. Give him the number. Well, listen, I'm
By the
going to
way-
say thank you.
He's my cousin.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the
That
other
She's
guy
a
explains
cousin
lot.
to my wife.
Oh my gosh,
Did you
really? No?
You
Oh, well,
did?
yes, I know.
Yeah.
To my Pepe,
Yeah,
Oh,
Right,
there
yes.
you go.
yeah.
the Jimmy Joe line.
Jimmy
Ah, the
Joe.
Jimmy Joe, yeah.
Jimmy
She's,
Joe line.
my wife is a Shannon related
Oh, okay.
to her family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, we never discussed New Dawn Enterprises, right?
Oh,
You don't.
Oh.
do we want to go?
No, not yet.
That's for the next conversation. Listen, I want to thank you all. It has been wonderful, and yeah, maybe we will have a subsequent conversation on how to fix things.
Yeah.